Hello, welcome back. We're starting second year now with a bang. You're going to be in QE in a couple of weeks' time. And when you come in, because there's still only going to be about half the lessons you normally would have had, I'm going to be expecting you to work from home and do stuff on the research document, which is just the listening and kind of commenting and analysis type work. You can do that yourself at home anyway. We don't need to be in a classroom for that. And that frees up our time when you're in QE to make music and have fun. So that's the plan. You've got a document called Research. That's a really important document because it's evidence not just for the Unit 22 session skills project we've got to do, it's also evidence for the improvisation unit we've got to do, and evidence, some of it's partly evidence for Unit 15 as well, which is a live music project. So it's at the heart of entire second year work. You should have already done a little bit of writing about Fats Waller for the jazz section. I did an online lesson for you for that, and you should have already done a bit of writing on the Bob Marley track, I Don't Want to Wait in Vain, as well. So we're going to do something on funk today, and then you've touched bases with three of the kind of key genres we're doing this year. Remember, you've already got an R&B section that you've done half of using some of your first year work, so that's a bit of a bonus. So with funk, this is probably one of the most important tracks because we're going to be listening to the theme from Shaft by Isaac Hayes. A little bit of context first of all. Isaac Hayes was a session musician at Stax Records in the mid to late 1960s. He was a piano player and he played on a lot of records by people like Otis Redding and Sam and Dave and people like that. Okay. Now these were quite funky records anyway. I'm going to play a bit of an Otis Redding track for you. That I think Isaac Hayes is on piano on this.
But you got to go home with me. I forgot some good old love, and then I got some in stone.
So we got a pretty funky track anyway. I think it's about 1967, perhaps, hard to handle. One of the first records where you hear kind of hi-hats playing a 16th groove, that, which became pretty important in the 70s, almost like the default pattern for lots of drummers in the 70s, particularly on funk and disco records. So Isaac Hayes has worked on those sort of records, but then he's becoming an artist in his own right. Funk music is really tied in with slightly more assertive kind of black politics in the late 60s. That transition that was around about 1968, partly caused, I think, by the assassination of Martin Luther King, and more people turned to the black power ideas of Malcolm X, meant that black musicians were becoming a bit more assertive with kind of black music in a way, and not necessarily wanting to make hits that would be palatable to a white audience, which was the business model of Motown. These were kind of like, let's make music exactly as we want, let's make it as funky, as bluesy as possible, and if people don't like it, tough. And it's like that slightly more assertive style. In line with that, there was a film proposed in 1970, I think, called Shaft, that was going to be the first kind of detective type movie featuring a main black lead actor. The character Shaft was a black detective working in, I think it was New York or something. And so the film company approached a black musician who had empathy with this kind of idea of a kind of black role model character, and he approached Isaac Hayes to produce some music for the film. So Isaac Hayes is used to working in Memphis at Stax Records, kind of jamming in a way, improvising. Okay, so he's used to working with session musicians and jamming ideas. And what we've got with the theme from Shaft is a jam that's then taken on to the next level and orchestrated, where Isaac Hayes has sat down and written out parts for members of an orchestra over the top of a jam they've already kind of created in the studio using improvisation. Let's have a little listen, and then we'll break it down a bit. all heard that before. I think it was on an advert for something, wasn't it? So at the heart of this kind of improvised jam, we've got three things going on that are key to kind of funk music, and this was a very influential record that influenced loads of kind of television and movie themes, and loads of other people made records that were copying the basic idea. So we've got at the heart of it that 16th hi-hat pattern that we heard a little bit of in the Otis Redding track. Pitter patter, pitter patter, pitter patter. And listen out when you listen to it yourself, you know, for those little slurps on the hi-hat that are played off the beat and syncopated, that kind of give it a bit of extra funk. All the way through the piece, you're going to hear a guitar on a single note. I've not got a wah-wah plugged in, but basically it's just a single note thing. Staccato, it's played kind of slightly muted. It's got almost that Morse code thing. There was a famous Motown record called You Keep Me Hanging On that had that. And basically what, as the guitar players know, that's being fed through an EQ filter, which is a wah-wah basically. So you're getting like the tone of the guitar. I'm just using the tone pot of the guitar there, where very quickly the bass is being rolled off, then all the treble's being put on, and the bass is being rolled off, the treble's being put on, and it's kind of like an EQ filter is the technical term for it. So whilst you've got that guitar part playing, you're getting that wah-wah effect of the tone changing, and he's using a pedal to do that. And you'll also hear in the background there's a second guitar that's kind of playing chords. It's also got a wah-wah on, but in a kind of extra kind of funky layer, that guitar player's playing those kind of wah-wah accents as triplets, like a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And again, I'm trying to imitate it using the volume of the guitar there. It's much easier with a pedal. So you've got the hi-hat playing 16ths with occasional kind of syncopated slurps by lifting up the pedal. You've got the guitar number 1 playing a single note, and you've got guitar number 2 playing the chords with a wah going on as well. Okay, and you've got some big, deep, sustained piano and bass kind of chord notes going on. Now the thing that makes this sophisticated as a piece of music is the guitar player's jamming on a G note there, and it's suspended there, but beneath it the piano and the chords as created by Isaac Hayes, sitting down and jamming with him, are actually more complex and more interesting. He's playing an F major 9th, okay, quite a jazzy chord. There's the major 7th, there's the 9th at the top of it, and the 9th is a G. That's why the wah-wah guitar hangs in nicely with it. It's on that chord, and then it's going down to an E minor 7th, which again has a G note built into it, which means that guitar part is still kind of harmonious, but there's just that tension, particularly because we're assuming it's going to be in the key of G, because it starts there, but the first kind of chord we get is actually a form of an F chord. Listen to that again. I'll play a little bit back. So that's triplet E wah-wah part. Funk's all about kind of staccato accents. We've got those trumpets, da 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 da, very staccato. That's kind of adding to the kind of rhythmic feel, as well as creating a bit of a melody there over those changes. In a minute, you're going to hear a little bit of flute coming in as well, and flute is kind of quite a kind of a cool instrument that comes in the 70s in kind of soul, funk, and jazz music, playing a kind of riff, and you get that nice contrast between the big deep bass notes and the high flutes. And remember, this is cinematic music, so it needs to be dramatic and use the full kind of palette of sounds. Listen up. Again, because this is funky and coming from a kind of bluesy soul tradition, the actual riff that the flutes are playing there. It's using that flattened third. And it's got a kind of a bluesy quality on the flute. And bear in mind, you've not heard film music like this before. You know, it's been written by mainly white composers. It's been very kind of influenced by classical music more than anything else. And then suddenly you have this funky piece of music that then went on to win the Oscar. The key thing being this piece of music was suddenly put into mainstream, became a hit single, but it won an Oscar. And it was the first Oscar given to a black artist for winning film music, so it became influential for that reason, which is why it's in our culture now and it's had a massive influence. So we've got Charles Pitts on the guitar, single note, slightly kind of 16th feel. It's got that kind of feel beneath it. We've got Willie Hall on the hi-hat there, and we've got Isaac Hayes on the keyboard parts that you hear, and at the heart of it, having a jam over those changes. But then afterwards, Isaac Hayes is then taken on this sophisticated orchestration. Let's have some trumpetry playing a little funky riff. Let's have some flute playing a kind of blue note riff over the top of it. And at around about 1 minute 23, we then have strings come in. We have the sound of violins. That kind of classic film music sound almost comes in, playing slightly more conventional orchestration. There, we're about 1 minute 40 in. So all the way through there's been this tension because we're hearing this chord and this chord over a G. Something's pulling us towards that G all the time, and the thing that makes this a really cool piece of music, I think, is we go into what, could you call it the main theme? I'm not really sure, but there's a transition around about 1 minute 40 where we jump into the key of G and we got this cool riff. And again, it's quite funky, it's syncopated. And the bass and the guitar and the keyboard are all jamming on that riff now. You can imagine how it might have happened in the studio with kind of Isaac is saying, oh, let's take it up to G when we get to this point and let's play this riff together. And it becomes a really kind of cool riff. The kick drum's coming in now. Willie Hall's putting a kind of bit of kick pattern in there. And again, the kick drum's falling off the beat to make it funky. And that kick drum accent comes kind of in between the beats and gives it an extra kind of kick. Here it comes. You might hear the guitar there's almost playing harmony to it, as well as the one of the guitars is harmonising the riff, which adds a kind of cool thing. Got some tambourine playing 16ths there. Remember, 16ths are often kind of our kind of default rhythm in funk. There's something about that that kind of is at the heart of lots of funk records. Play a little bit more. It's almost like diddler, 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 bum. It's that bum that kind of gives it the kind of funky feel. Just falling just a little bit early, and that's what kind of gives the music that jerk and that extra kind of groove to it. We've got some nice kind of trumpet riffs coming in. Again, they've almost got a semi-quaver quality to it. The diddle, 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 diddle. Listen to the sound of the drummer. Diddle, 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 diddle. Not just a single note, like a diddle. violins, they have a kind of semi-quaver quality. They're kind of playing a funky riff. Imagine the orchestra players, you know, who've never played kind of funky stuff before, coming in with the violins and suddenly having to play that very staccato kind of thing going on there. And then we go to the slightly more conventional song element of it, where As It Is vocal's going to come in now. As It Is has a really deep low voice, and again that's a feature of some funk and disco records, having a real bass manly voice. He's also the voice for Chef from South Park, so you might recognise his voice. And basically, like almost in hip-hop music of the 80s and 90s, he's kind of, the vocals boasting about his kind of prowess with women and how cool he is. And you're getting a nice contrast between the high violin part, which is kind of quite a feminine tone, with his deep voice, and there's also some backing singers who are also going to shout out his name, Shaft, in a kind of counterpoint as well. Here we go.
Left, right, and dick, this is sex machine, don't want the chicks. You're damn right.
Theme there, which is that which starts on the major ninth of the F, the G note, and falls down that scale, which is quite a kind of pretty melody. But you've also got another kind of funk soul type drum beat coming in there. You've got that kind of 4 and a snare sound, very kind of Motown, with the hi-hat kind of playing off on the pedal again to get a bit of a kind of syncopation. Breaks down again there. Remember, this is all happening over kind of film credits. We're seeing it cinematically originally, and that kind of transition there allows the visual director to take music in a different idea perhaps. There's going to be some little stabs in a minute where it breaks down totally. That's another kind of funky ingredient. Listen out for those. There's that classic funk riff that we associate almost with the movies, that Pearl and Dean thing, which is kind of another kind of almost a cliche now, but I think this was the first piece of music to use it. So there you have a classic kind of piece of 1970s funk by Isaac Hayes. Plenty for you to write about, I think. Enjoy.